that down, let's go on to this, shall we? House of the Dragon has now returned. Last night, the long-awaited debut of the second season aired, and I have thoughts, and I won't bury the lead. It's freaking awesome. It's awesome. I absolutely loved it. I thought, the characters were as great as ever. The scheming is as great as ever. The scope, I'm going to talk about that specifically in a second, is as great as ever. It's just fabulous. I absolutely loved it. Now, I want to talk about a couple things in particular. And I'm not one of those guys that I like to talk nicely about one thing by disparaging another thing, but I do think the comparison here is appropriate. One of my big criticisms of a lot of Star Wars television is scope, or lack thereof. That the scope always feels so small. The universe continues in Star Wars to feel smaller and smaller and smaller. Nothing feels grand or galactic in nature. Everything just feels very small. And I only bring that up not to bash on Star Wars TV, but to, by contrast and comparison, you come back into Westeros, and I don't know how they do it, but everything feels big. Everything feels like it truly does have global implications. Everything feels like we are talking about rallying nations. And everything, they just find a way, even when it's in a small room with just a couple of people talking, it feels like it's on a more epic scale. And they did not miss a beat going from season 1 into season 2. They did such a great job of that you felt the scale and the scope. Even everything from like a conversation standing on the wall, talking about the Night's Watch and the importance of it. And just without going too heavy into it, just giving a little bit of a wink and a nod to something that we know is very important in the world of Game of Thrones. Right? So there's that. Second thing that I thought was absolutely outstanding. The world of Game of Thrones, while a lot of people like to talk about dragons and everything, is not at its best when dragons are blowing crap up. It's awesome when dragons are blowing crap up, don't get me wrong. But Game of Thrones and the world of Game of Thrones is at its absolute best when it's all about the Game of Thrones. When it's about the strategizing. When it's about the conniving. When it's about whispers in dark corners. When it's about backstabbing. That is when this world of shows, Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, to me, really, really shines. There's a scene in the movie where, like, we got Prince Daemon talking to, I forget the name of the character who's the queen that never was.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
the older lady.
Yeah, but right at the beginning, the two of them just an intimate face-to-face conversation that I was riveted by.
I think it's Rhaenys, isn't it Rhaenys?
Yes, yeah, or Rhaenys. Rhaenys, something like along those lines. She's a badass, whatever. So like they have the intimate face-to-face conversation that I'm like, I was just riveted by. There's another scene where Aemon and doofus butthole Kristoff Sir McNighty face are having their conversation. It's just a one-on-one conversation in a small candlelit room, and I was riveted by the dialogue. High Lord Rubfeet has this conversation with the king. Just pulls him aside, my lord, if I may have a moment. And he doesn't touch his foot or anything. And they have this conversation. This short, whispered conversation. And I'm just like, completely. This is when the stories in Westeros are firing on all cylinders. And very cool to see the dragons, all that kind of stuff. And this amped it up. Also, if you're going to be in the world of Game of Thrones, you got to have some things to shock us, right? This is, after all, a story that is leading to great war, where not hundreds, not thousands, not tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands, but possibly millions of people are going to die. So there are horrors in this show, always have been. And man, I won't go into it in case you haven't seen the episode yet. the ending of this episode shook me. It really did. It shook me. Guys, we want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Liquid IV. You know, it seems like summer's just designed to make us thirsty, whether it's camping, hiking, playing sports, and staying hydrated is the key to making the most of every moment. Because summer requires extraordinary hydration that's built for everyday dehydrating moments. Liquid IV hydrates me with benefits like electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients. With 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, plus 8 vitamins and nutrients in a single stick, it's clearly why Liquid IV is the #1 powdered hydration brand in America. It has 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink. Just tear, pour, and live more. Just 1 stick plus 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone. With 8 vitamins and nutrients, non-GMO and free from gluten, dairy, and soy. There's no artificial colors or sweeteners, and it's got 4 delicious sugar-free flavors: white peach, green grape, raspberry melon, and lemon lime. So turn your ordinary water into extraordinary hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use the code Campea at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code Campea at liquidiv.com.
I definitely had some issues with like how that progressed, but like I can't get into it without any spoilers. So,
see, I thought it was a perfectly logical progression. They established earlier in the episode that one of the common things you see around the
no, all that was fine. The two people, I'm like, there's an easy way to find out what you're trying to find out. You actually just said how you're going to find out, and then you're like, well, let's ask her. And they're like, what if she's lying? I'm like, you could find out the way you suggested finding out.
Oh, I know, and they could have, but then they realized they didn't have to. You know, and it had a shocking conclusion.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, did they? Oh my God, they did. Because this show always wants to remind the viewers, this world of Westeros, this world of the Game of Thrones is brutal. It is brutal. And whenever you might be tempted to fall back into a false sense of, no, this is a land of high lords and ladies. No, this is a brutal, cutthroat, horrible world. And every once in a while they remind us of that. And they also want you to feel things, right? I've always talked about this, that sometimes people think certain things in movies and TV shows should just always be done off camera. And sometimes I agree, but sometimes I disagree. Sometimes I think we as the audience need to experience a brutal moment for us to be able to identify a little bit what other characters are going to feel in the story. And with what happens at the end, I felt they showed us just enough without showing us too much. And by the end of the episode, I was just, please have pull the boys and drop 2 episodes at first. No, it was just 1 episode, but I absolutely loved it. I thought it was great.
It's finding someone who you could like 100% trust, like a unicorn in this world. It feels like
not since Ned Stark in the first season of the first Game of Thrones. I honestly think that's like been the single only true man of good and honor. Even Jon Snow, like I think everybody else in the Game of Thrones, you can be mostly good or you can be mostly bad, but they're all like 100 different shades of gray, which is actually pretty cool.
Because it feels like if you offer anyone's desire, whether it be money or whatever, they could turn sides like just like that in this world.
Yeah.
And you talked about Scope, another show that did that, and on the same platform was The Last of Us. The scope of the world, like when they would walk through
totally global scale. Yeah. Absolutely. So when a show can do that, it number one is great, but then it also makes me lament when shows I really want to be great, the Star Wars shows, fail to do it. So it kind of brings that up too. So listen, it's just the first episode, but I think they were off to a smashing start. I loved it, and I cannot wait to see where they go. Anyway, question is for you guys. What do you think about this? Did you have a chance to see the first episode of House of the Dragon Season 2? If so, what did you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.